should be targeting people in my city or my half of the city or my quadrant of the city or my neighborhood, 100% we're going to lack focus.
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I want to be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today, as the Edmonton Business Consultant, we're talking about the business plan target market section. So again, as the Edmonton Business Consultant, we're talking about the business plan target market. I have Tyson here with me today. Tyson, so any plans coming up for the rest of the summer?
Well, the music festival that I helped set up for, I'm going to next weekend, and then have a 2-week long camping trip planned. So hopefully go to Jasper and Banff and stuff.
Jasper and Banff, right on. Yeah, good camping trip. Tent or trailer?
Tent.
Real camping. There we go. So the quote that we have for today, it's a Benjamin Franklin quote, one of the founding fathers of the United States, and it says, "If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail." And Palo Alto tells us that they've run their surveys, and businesses who complete a business plan are 50% more likely to grow their revenue than those who do not. So again, businesses who complete a business plan, even a bad business plan, but it's finished, are 50% more likely to grow their revenue, thus solving one of the great ways to solve the common most significant problem in business is failure to grow revenue. And the story that we have here are most business owners they've either never thought critically about who their target market is, or they're spending way too much time doing market analysis that would only be useful if they're a large company. And there's probably a happy medium there that's a little bit better. So Tyson, what are those questions that these business owners, and they're trying to put a target market in their business plan?
Do you put the target market in the executive summary of a business plan?
I think so. To me, it goes right with, what am I selling, how much I'm going to charge, what I expect to make off those margins. Now I got to say, identify who is that pool of people that I'm going to sell it to. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm trying to establish the reasonableness of what I'm selling and what the price points are, I have to identify, who I'm selling it to. I believe it's personal perception, but I believe it has to be in there. But keep in mind, for anybody who says that it doesn't have to be in there, let's take it from the perspective of we know that sometimes people who are making decisions for you, bankers or investors, only read the executive summary. Do you think it's easy for them to identify if this business is viable if they know how much they're charging, but they don't understand who they're intending to charge it to? In my mind, those two things are necessary. They should be in the same section.
Yeah. If you don't identify your target market, will your advertisements lack focus?
Yeah, if you don't know I should be targeting people in my city or my half of the city or my quadrant of the city or my neighborhood, 100% we're going to lack focus. So you really got to be a little bit more specific on who that is, or else it's very difficult to even start any advertising initiatives.
Do you consider characteristics like home ownership, income, and family status?
Yeah, those are some of the ones that you really want to consider. If you're doing any sort of contracting work, you're generally not targeting renters because they're not going to hire the contractors. They're just going to call the landlord. So you want to target homeowners, and depending on the price point of what you're selling, if you're selling Porsches, you're not going to sell it to people with less than $50,000 of household income. It's got to match what you're trying to sell. And then the family status. If you're a new home builder, for example, and you're building 4-bedroom homes, you're not going to sell a lot to single bachelors. That's just not how it's going to work. And one of the ones that we often have to think about too, and we're almost encouraged not to think about it sometimes. School makes us thinking about gender and age are bad. When you're doing advertising, you should think about gender and age. We're not supposed to think about it when it comes to hiring employees, but when it comes to advertising, you should be looking at gender and age. So home ownership status and income and family status and gender and age. Those are 5 common ones that you're probably going to want to flush out, and it might go over 1 or 2 groups. Maybe it's male and female, but maybe you're in an industry. There's a lot of consumer good type industries where females make 80% of all the buying decisions. So we should be aware of that.
Is it practical for most small businesses to capture a large percentage of market share?
No, it is simply just not practical. I mean, just think that you're starting a general contracting business and you want to be a contractor. The big guys, the PCLs, they're the Grahams, they have the large percentage of the market share. You're just not going to capture that off the bat. Maybe that's something that you can do after a couple of decades in business, but it's not practical for most small businesses to capture a large percentage of the market share.
Right. What will 1% of the local market share do for most business owners?
Yeah, so a lot of people are deflated when I tell them it's not practical for you to capture, 5% or 10% or 20% of the local market share. But what they're forgetting is if they can capture 1% of the local market, they'll probably be the richest person in their entire family in a lot of businesses, and they just don't realize how big 1% of the local market is. I mean, if you captured 1% of the general contracting market in Edmonton, you would be the richest person in your family, statistically speaking, unless you're in a very rich family already. So don't get discouraged on that it's impossible to capture a large percentage or impractical to plan on capturing a large percentage of the market for most small businesses. You got to realize that 1% is all you need.
Yeah. How much time should you spend being precise about the exact market size?
So a lot of small businesses, when we take a look at that they need to consider some really basic characteristics. They're talking about home ownership and income and family status and gender and age. Okay, they're probably in a business that they need to capture 1% or less of the entire local market to achieve all their financial goals and their achieve financial freedom and time freedom. So they don't have to be that precise about it. If they got a general overview of how big that market is, you don't have to spend any more time of that. If you're Pepsi trying to beat Coke and you want to go from 46% market share to 48% market share, you got to be more precise about what that is, because that extra percentage point matters and one of your competitors has it. But if you're a small business, you just got to realize who's the big group. Is it big enough to sustain this price? And once it's big enough, I just need 1% or less. So if my projection of how big the market is, off by a factor of 2, it's not even going to matter.
Mm-hmm. How often do most people need to see an ad before they take action?
Most people need to see an ad. They tell us the stat is 4.3 times. So most people need to see an ad 4.3 times before they're even going to take any action at all. So, when we think about running ads once, it's not really useful in terms of our dollars spent if we're going to run ads once.
In the entire city, is the entire city often too big for a target for small businesses?
It is. So we think about, okay, we gotta reach this person 4.3 times. I want to drop flyers. Okay, you need to drop the flyers in the same location like 5 times. So it's going to cost an exorbitant amount of money to drop flyers in the entire city 5 times, or even run your Facebook ad and get it in front of the same consumer 5 times. So be smaller. Target a smaller part of the city. Target a half of the city, a quadrant of the city, or a section of a few neighborhoods even. That will make your advertising dollar go a lot further, because you got to realize that ads, even effective ads, have to get in front of the consumer multiple times before they're going to take action.
Yeah. Can commercial realtors help gather data on location-specific foot and vehicle traffic?
Yeah, so that's one of them too, where let's say you want to open a restaurant. It doesn't really matter as much, how much people spend on restaurant food in the entire city. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a useless number. For sure that 1% makes you the richest person in your family. So it's big enough. What would be more relevant is how many people walk by the restaurant every day. How many people drive by the restaurant every day. If we put a nice new sign up there, a sandwich board, what can we actually accomplish? If we rent a couple of bus benches in the area, what's relevant for us to get to? So those sort of foot traffic and vehicle traffic, commercial realtors have excellent resources at that, and they can be a good draw.
Okay. Can the city neighborhood census data be an excellent resource?
Yeah, I found where we're getting into businesses that it's wise for them not to target the greater Edmonton market. So we're not talking about just targeting married, home-owning females of, great between 30 and 40 years old, who have $100,000 of household income or more. But we're getting more specific. We're talking about, hey, we're just going to get this quadrant of the city. The City of Edmonton census data is fantastic. It's going to tell you how many people in each neighborhood, so you can get really specific on saying, well, you don't want to go too small. Maybe one neighborhood is too small, but if we go to the 4 neighborhoods around it, that might be big enough. And now we can get those ad dollars that we actually can get our ads in front of our ideal and likely buyer, more than 4.3 times, and we can start to get, some traction on those advertising initiatives. So I strongly, recommend looking at those City of Edmonton neighborhood census information in any business or any business plan where we're targeting, less than the greater metropolitan area. So I think that's what we have here today. As always, please hit the like and subscribe button so we can continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. And if you can leave us some comments below, we'd be happy to respond back and use any input that you have to create future videos. Thanks very much.